Hello again, guys and gals. It's Barry with Barry's A-Track and Classic Car Radio Repair. And this video is a little bit out of the ordinary in that I'm not just yet demonstrating a customer's completed unit, but I'm kind of sharing a little bit of a sneak peek at what goes into these conversion jobs before they're ready for a final test and shipment. And so we'll just go ahead. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the very kind comments that you've been making on my videos. I think I'm at this might be video number 337. I'm not really sure, but probably half of all customers who call say something like, "Yeah, I've seen your videos. I love your videos," and it's really nice to know that that my hard work is paying off in that respect. And that also brings us to you may notice that the lighting is not all that great on some of them. Well, that's because my shop currently has 32 cameras trained on one thing or another, and you can ask any videographer, how do you adjust the lighting for 32 cameras at once, and it's just not going to happen. So, for instance, here's just a quick peek at one of my banks of cameras. This is okay. What am I doing here? Let's try this again. Bank one. Here's a peek at 17 of my cameras, and as you can see, the lighting looks pretty good there. The color rendition is pretty nice, and that's 17 of my cameras. Those are mostly trained on the bench and the readouts of my test equipment. But then, and, it looks pretty good. But then when we go to this view, not so great. The lighting is totally off. The colors are off. The whole thing just kind of looks like crap. So I have to be kind of careful of which cameras I'm using so that I put on a semi-professional appearance here. And not to mention that all my cameras are standard definition, and they need to be that because those are the only cameras on which I can control the zoom remotely, control the focus remotely, and it's just not practical to try to put HD cameras. 32 HD cameras is going to run quite a bit of money. So I'm currently sticking with my standard definition cameras and hoping that they still continue to be satisfactory. So let's go back to me for the moment so I can try to remember where I was. Where's me? There's me. Hi, me. Okay, we're going to go look at some of the modifications I make to the A-Track section on a semi-later Chrysler unit. Now, Chrysler is pretty notorious for doing a lot of really cool stuff at manufacture, but that same stuff is what makes them a little bit tougher to service. So this model isn't nearly as bad as some of the others as far as that goes. But let's just go ahead and switch to my bench view here, and we're just going to focus on what I've done in the A-Track section so far. This is a conversion sent in by Dante in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And thank you for that. Thank you for sending your job clear across the country to have me work on it. And so this is basically the after part on the A-Track, and this is the before. Needless to say, this is two different units, two identical units. And so on the original unit, we have our old motor. We have our tape head preamp right there, and it just solders in on top of that switch. And then we have the usual shiny band around the capstan from the tape wearing it smooth. Of course, that is supposed to be rough right there. And so now we'll go to the changes I've made. Now, one thing I'll mention is that in its original state, this radio had neither enough power nor enough fidelity to reproduce the motor noise that comes from these brush-type motors. They didn't have to sound all that great. They just had to sound good through car speakers, so they're not going to spend a whole bunch of money, making them sound as best they could because they only had to go up to about maybe 12K in frequency response, whereas nowadays folks are demanding the full range out of their systems. So whenever a Chrysler unit like this, or actually most units come into my shop like this, the motor's got to go and the preamp's got to go, and what we end up with is this. This is our new motor. Now, the old motor did not have adjustable speed. This one does, and I have actually had to fabricate a bracket to go right here to hold the companion speed control board so that we can reach in right at the top and adjust the speed anytime we need to. Motors do tend to drift in speed over the years. They'll start running a little bit slower or a little bit faster than they were designed for. Not to mention, and I've already mentioned the noise factor. These old motors produce a lot of noise, but also it's the fact that belts are becoming more and more scarce, and the exact sizes are sometimes not available anymore. And so you'll sometimes have to go with a thicker belt and a thicker belt is going to make the machine run faster. So it's almost necessary to have an adjustable speed motor in this thing, sometimes just to replace the belt, because the wrong size belt will make it run at the wrong speed in a lot of cases. So my work is pretty well completed on the 8-track section. As I mentioned before, I pull up the preamp board and I hand wire whatever needs to be wired to the original switch, and there are 6 more wires that I had to hook up so that we can select between the aux input and the 8-track section. And so that's pretty much, and we have resurfaced the capstan. You'll notice that this capstan has the rough surface that it's supposed to have. I don't know if I can zoom in far enough to really bring that out, but yeah, it's about as far as it'll go. But you'll see that here's the old capstan with that shiny band around the middle. And then here's the resurfaced capstan, which is, you can see it's a rough surface to pull that tape properly. So that's pretty much it for the 8-track section. Now this customer has requested the Bluetooth and USB add-on on top of the conversion. So that means now the Bluetooth has a small antenna that needs to be able to pick up what your portable Bluetooth device is putting out. And although the manufacturer of the Bluetooth module says it'll pick up through the dial face, the fact is that almost all dial faces contain metal, and metal is something that's going to block your signal pickup. So what I do instead of that, of course, it will also pick up through the dial face in most cases, but just to be on the safe side, I go ahead and cut a hole in the bottom of the unit, and of course I cover it with a piece of fiber or something so that you can't push through it, or stuff doesn't fall into it. This is on the bottom where it's never seen anyway. So this gives the Bluetooth antenna a clear path, unobstructed by any metal, and it's going to result in much better pickup. So that's just another way in which I try to go the extra mile to make sure that you're not going to have trouble when you install this radio. I'm not known for my fast turn times, that's for sure, but I am known for my dedication to a long-term reliability, and the fact that most customers never have to pull their radios out again after I've done my magic on them. So just once more, there's the look at the old and a look at the new, and you'll see there's quite a bit of stuff changed on that. Okay, so now we'll look at we'll grab the actual radio chassis, and we'll take a look at the old one first. This is the before chassis, before conversion, and that's okay. Now the first thing we'll notice here is that you can't really get to the tuner to service the tuner. There's a little piece of rubber that goes right there. That's your clutch, and that clutch disengages when you go to use the push buttons. It disengages so that it's not dragging that mechanism. So it's not dragging too much along with it when you try to switch stations. It's a really good idea to be able to get in there and replace the clutch. On the original radio, you have to unsolder all kinds of crap to pull this board up. You even have to unsolder all the tuner connections, which is probably about 8 or 9 tuner connections there. You have to unsolder all that. You have to unsolder it from these little ground pieces here before you can finally pull that board up to service the tuner. So now let's take a look at the after I finish my magic on this thing. This is what we have. There's no more board covering everything up, and you can see this is the new receiver board right there where all these wires are going into. This is basically the complete AM/FM radio with aux input and 180 watts total output power in a much smaller space, needless to say. And then here is the new tape head preamp. If you've been watching my videos, you'll know that my special tape head preamp sounds much better than the original. It brings out the brightness that's lost on the 8-track tapes over the years. So we go in with a new preamp, and this preamp, as you'll see, all that's pretty much left on this job is just the final wiring. I've installed pretty much everything, and now we just need to hook all the wires up. So this is going to let's zoom out here. Okay, so this is the 8-track section there, and then whoop, my zoom is got a mind of its own there. And so essentially this radio chassis is just going to kind of slide right in on top of this 8-track so that we have everything all together, and then we can reach right through here to adjust our motor speed, and then to adjust our preamp output. My preamp output, unlike the original, has adjustable level controls for each side, and so our preamp is going to be right there on the back, and it's not real easy to get to, but it can be adjusted, especially if we loosen the back panel and tilt it back a little bit. Then we can get a screwdriver right in there to adjust the preamp output levels. Here is the side of the radio where I've mounted the Bluetooth/USB add-on, and here's our little USB cable coming out, and then this is the little tiny Bluetooth antenna that I was talking about earlier that needs to have a clear path. Okay, right there, that's our Bluetooth antenna, just a little 1/2 inch by, looks like a 5/8 inch piece of circuit board that the antenna is printed on, so that all needs to be able to pick up well, so that's why I cut that hole in the bottom of the unit. And so now we are pretty much ready. I've got everything installed. It does take some thought and advanced planning to figure out where to mount everything. We have to consider some angles. For instance, we don't want the preamp board right next to the motor speed control board because that's going to allow motor noise to creep into the preamp circuit, which is a very high gain circuit. So the way I've got it now, I've got the preamp a good 3 inches away from the motor speed control board. Let's see if we can stand it up for you here. There's my preamp. Our motor speed control board is right down there, so they're well away from each other. This is our new motor. That's the kind that does not generate the same kind of noise that the old one did. And when we get all through with it, all we may have to do is just loosen this back, tilt this back just a touch so we can adjust the head height. But I generally do that before the 8-track session goes into the rest of the unit anyway. I like to work on the 8-track section outside of the radio, no matter what it takes to get it out. It's just easier to do a top-notch quality job on the 8-track section if I've got that out by itself. So, and that was pretty much just the purpose of this video, just to kind of share with you guys some of what goes into the conversions. And this is going to be our aux jacks. Our aux input jacks are right there next to the preamp board, and since we're only using one or the other, we're never using the preamp and the aux jacks at the same time. It's okay for those to be close to each other because they're not going to radiate into each other. So this radio is ready for pretty much the final wiring. I just have to kind of sort the wiring out and figure out where they all go. I've got about 6 more wires to solder onto the tape/radio switch, and then connect everything up together and test it, and this puppy will be done. This customer has requested that we don't use his original connectors because he wants the power output to be as high and the fidelity to be as good as possible. So we just go with a straight wire harness, and the customer wires it into his speakers, which on the high power, to get the most power, you have to have 2 separate wires going to each speaker. They cannot be common grounded like they originally were. We can use the original connectors with this conversion on any radio, and the only drawback is most cars have a common ground speaker system which don't allow the full output power to come through. The output power will be roughly equal to the original radio. So that's pretty much it. Just kind of wanted to share this little morsel of you guys, my little behind the scenes stuff that I do here. Kind of like to think I go the extra mile for long-term reliability and for maximum enjoyment, maximum fidelity. And one thing that most shops are not going to have is this replacement motor. The shops that do have them, chances are they bought it from me. And this special preamp that I designed, most shops just reuse the existing preamp, which allows some noise through, and it doesn't sound nearly as bright as my special design preamp, which was designed specifically to bring out the lost brightness of the 8-track format. So I'm going to get on out of here and continue my fine work, if I can find myself. And there I am. And of course, when I finish this radio, I will be doing the final test on video as well. And so I'm going to continue finishing my work on this radio here for Dante. And thank you again, Dante, for your business. Thank you all for watching. My website is in the description below, and you can reach me directly at 928-533-9666. I answer the phone pretty much at all hours. I pretty much love my job. I'm not limited to business hours for the most part. I do keep my phone with me at all times, and I try to answer it no matter how late a customer might want to call. So, again, my website is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you again for your very kind comments on my videos, and we'll see you next time.